It's our first in hopefully many episodes of something I think that we can give insights that other people can't. We're sitting in the front lines of reclamation of Jerusalem property. So it's our first Eye on Jerusalem episode from the office of Ateret Cohanim, the bunker where everything happens, where the purchases happen, where the where the ability to give pioneers security and encouragement to do what they're doing. So
I like calling it the pumping station of Yerushalayim. This is a lot of things happen around this office. It may not be the biggest, the flashiest of offices in Jerusalem, but clearly what happens here, what starts from here, whether it be the acquisitions, even just the finding out about old Jewish property, the research, the dealing with the Arabs, and also adding all this life to various parts of Yerushalayim, our work is very paramount.
It's really tremendous. It's the amount of information that goes into each property, the history behind it, not just the politics, not just the legalities, but there's a tremendous amount of history you have to know just by delving into this stuff.
Well, listen, we've been here for a long time. I'm not saying that the properties that we deal with are the ones that Avraham Avinu bought 3,800 years ago. But given the fact that Jews have been here for hundreds of years, and given that we're talking about Turkish, later on the British and the Jordanians and now Israeli law, when it comes to any title searches and the work that is required even from a legal perspective is a minefield. But thank God we're seeing the successes, and we're able to add a lot of Jewish life to the heart of Jerusalem that the world has been hungry to try and get hold of, but we've been successful in making sure that it stays in Jewish hands.
So it looks like something we want to talk about this week in our kickoff episode is the Trump plan, the deal of the century. And something you've always pointed out to me every time we go there, Kidmat Tzion, this far-flung neighborhood of Jerusalem that I always feel we're driving to Ramallah, and you feel it. Not that it's even in the same direction, but you're feeling you're going completely to a different universe. And I'm saying, I always ask, what is this? Where's the connection between Kidmat Tzion and the rest of the stuff that Ateret Cohanim has dealt with? And then we see the fruits of the labor when I'm just setting it up really right now, is this, if there would ever be some sort of Palestinian Jerusalem, Kidmat Tzion has made it that it will not continue to what the world calls the Holy Basin.
Right. I mean, the concept of what we refer to as the Shield of Jerusalem becomes very central to Kidmat Tzion. If we think in terms of Jerusalem and what Ateret Cohanim does, it started off, of course, for the first 25 odd years of Ateret Cohanim, really within the old Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter of today. And today there's 1,000 Jews there. It's like in many ways, it's like the Jewish quarter, certain streets there. But first of all, we found out about a lot of old Jewish property east of the old city in what's called the Holy Basin, going towards Abu Dis, on the corridor going towards Abu Dis. And that also includes the city of David, which is southeast of the old city. It includes the Mount of Olives, which is east of the old city, that everyone knows the Mount of Olives. Today we have a Jewish neighborhood on the Mount of Olives because Jews bought there 130 odd years ago. Today there's a Jewish neighborhood adjacent to the cemetery, but as a separate entity, a phenomenal, beautiful jewel in the crown called Ma'ale HaZeitim. And further east, which is only a 3 to 5 minute drive from the old city, is a massive empty property. Huge land, we're talking close to 200 acres of land, unfortunately some of it is in Abu Dis today, where there's old Jewish property. Now, for people to understand, we're talking about an area, once again, which is east of Mount of Olives, 5 minute drive from the old city, and then you come to the municipal border of Jerusalem and the village of Abu Dis. That many, many years ago, with the famous Oslo plan, the disaster, the tragedy, where in fact Barak even offered Arafat Abu Dis's Area A, the whole corridor going towards the old city, and including 5 of the 7 gates of the old city, and most of the old city, in fact. One doesn't need to be a genius to recognise the problems in that particular offer, and thank God Arafat himself said no. What makes Trump's plan rather unique is that at least America is saying, oh no, the Holy Basin is in Jewish hands. Abu Dis on the other side of the municipal border, maybe one day, if they do A, B, C, and D, will end up being some Palestinian capital, which means that the work of Ateret Cohanim, which is adding that Jewish life in the Holy Basin, in that corridor, especially Kidmat Tzion, is paramount. We are adjacent, literally, to Abu Dis, on the inside of the municipal border, inside of the fence, overlooking an empty Palestinian Parliament House, Jewish property, today 10 Jewish families, and God willing it will be what I call the neighbourhood of the century. He may have the deal of the century, and there are many problems and holes and major negatives in this plan of his. But in relation to Jerusalem, at least the Holy Basin, thank God there's understanding basically that, like we've been saying for years, Jerusalem belongs to the Jewish people. There is no other sovereign body that has ever been here. There's no other sovereign body that can, definitely not an Arab or Palestinian entity that should have any control of the Holy Basin, and that's going to stay in Jewish hands. But we have to make sure, though, that we have that Jewish life from Kidmat Tzion, and that's why when that plan is to be lodged at the District Building Commission, or whatever commission is going to approve it, it'll be a huge test, whatever government is here. That's the true shield of Jerusalem. Jewish life in certain strategic neighbourhoods, from Kidmat Tzion, where there's 10 families, going to be 300 to 400 odd families, next Malei HaZeitim, City of David, Yemenite village, and of course the Old City.
What the Trump plan really proves is that where Jewish life is, that's where sovereignty is. It proves it. You can't win this on just the map alone, or just good policy, or even conferences. This is really 10 families held back. Really, this potential Palestinian Jerusalem, and its control over our holiest sites. Really, our access to our holy sites. 10 families, and you see this around Judea and Samaria. Really, in the plan, we don't have to get into whether it's a good plan or not. But the idea is that the potential to annex these places occurred because of families going to hillsides.
Physical facts on the ground, Jewish presence. I think you hit the nail on the head in relation to sovereignty and physical presence. I'll give you a small example, even though it's not the topic today of Kidmat Tzion. But in the Yemenite village where we moved back to, there are 22 families there. If you were to go there 15 years ago, you wouldn't have seen not one sovereign Israeli entity there. Not inspectors, not municipal people, not police, not border patrol police, nothing. It became like the Wild East, the no man's land. Having Jewish presence there, suddenly there's police, there's inspectors, there's traffic inspectors, enforcers, there's building inspectors and enforcers, there's municipal investment in the area, and that's all sovereignty. So basically, Ateret Cohanim in many ways does a lot more than just add Jewish life and create Jews and Arabs living together under Jewish sovereignty, but it drags Jewish sovereignty to make sure that these sovereign bodies do invest and act. And that way it ends up being phenomenal, and even Jews and Arabs even working together in some ways. In the Yemenite village, we'll talk about another time, what different families did in order to get streets changed and rubbish changed. Jews and Arabs working together in basic coexistence, but under Jewish sovereignty is the only way we can go. Obviously Jewish sovereignty. But in going back to Kidmat Tzion, though, it is, I have to say it again, and I'll keep on saying it, it is without a doubt going to be the neighbourhood, and it is today the neighbourhood of the century.
How many homes are slated to be built there in potential?
It's a question mark. We can build theoretically up to 400 apartments, but because it's so close to the security fence, and because it's adjacent to Abu Dis, and therefore there are question marks of height in relation to vis-a-vis the neighbourhood which is next door, there are a number of different bodies that will decide whether it's going to be 300 to 400 units, how high, how close to the fence, all that impacts on what's going to be. At the end, we hope it'll be somewhere between 300 to 400 residential units, and that's only stage one. But once again, before it's decided how many, it has to be approved. And at the moment, we have 10 families living in 5 buildings. At the moment in the property. It's a beautiful area, as you've been there a number of times, and we have an amazing function over Sukkot. 10 beautiful families with activities, something very special, and they're looking to one day, hopefully it'll be approved. And now with the, so to speak, Trump approval of the Holy Basin, it may be easier for Netanyahu or anyone else who's going to be the Prime Minister to even allow it, because all this is part of Jerusalem proper in the eyes of now America. So who knows? But definitely the neighbourhood of the century.
Please God, it'll be built very, very fast.
Amen.
Yeah.